Hey, I'm Malcolm-Jamal Warner, and you are watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. You know, a lot of people think they're too old or it's too late for them to learn how to play an instrument. So I created ForBassPlayersOnly.com for adults who want to learn to play bass because I believe you're never too old and it's never too late to experience the joy and the pleasure of making music. ForBassPlayersOnly.com. Let's play bass. My guest this week is certainly no stranger to you. Malcolm-Jamal Warner is an Emmy nominated actor with a long, successful career in TV, where he was in the main cast of The Cosby Show, Malcolm and Eddie, Fresh Prince of Bel Air. He's been on Sesame Street, Saturday Night Live, and more recently, a couple of series my wife and I enjoyed very much Suits and in a very prominent role in The Resident, which is a show on Hulu. And Malcolm plays a badass, cocky as all hell thoracic surgeon, yet at the same time, quite a likable person. Oh, and he's also a bass player, which is why he's here with me today. He's not only just a bass player, he's a serious bass player. He's a good bass player. He is a Grammy Award winner with I'd say I'd call it a penchant for R&B, poetry, and the spoken word. And he has his own band called Miles Long. Hello, Malcolm.
Hey, John. Good to see you, man.
It's great to see you too. Welcome back to the Bass Players Only. The first interview that we did with you was published in 2015. And we actually recorded it at Bass Player Live in Hollywood in the fall of 2014. So it's been a while. Anything new?
Yeah. Tons of things new since then. A lot can happen in 9 years.
Yeah, well, let's get to that. But yeah, I was watching that interview yesterday, and it was really cool that, first of all, you were named for Ahmad Jamal,
Yeah.
which you told me during the interview. And I didn't know at the time that the Malcolm was actually from Malcolm X. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah. Yeah. Very much. Yeah. Malcolm X and Ahmad
I,
Jamal.
I really enjoyed talking to you during that interview about Israel Crosby and Ron Carter, Paul
Yeah.
Chambers, Alfonso Johnson, Marcus Miller. So, what's happening now? What's keeping you busy musically?
Oh, man. Well, fatherhood keeps me very busy. Um, Musically, I've been gigging a lot. I put out my fourth album last September, "Hiding in Plain View," which got a Grammy nomination, which was pretty cool. And I mean that was really validating because that album was actually the first time where I did most of the production myself this time around. It was an album that started out as my quarantine lockdown album, and then I just kind of sat on it, and then finally, pulled it out and spruced it up and put it out last year. So the Grammy nomination for that, not just for the poetry, was exciting, but the fact that again, most of the production was done by me, which just made it that much more of a treat, if you will.
It's actually I've listened to it, and when you and I first started talking about setting up this interview, it was several months ago, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
So you told me you were all excited about it, so I checked it out, and yeah, the production is excellent. So I'll give you that
yeah.
as
Thank
well.
you, thank you very much.
You know, as you said in the other interview, you've always been quite curious with the bass, and you said you didn't choose the bass chose you. You remember saying that?
I do remember saying that. Yeah, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because you were saying, well, I'm an actor and I need a hobby, so I could just sit in my dressing room while I'm waiting and just practice scales up and down. And you said
Yeah.
that turned out to be not as much fun as you were expecting.
Yeah, that didn't quite pan out. So I started, I started holding jam sessions at my house, um, and then eventually, I spent some time at MI, and then put the band together. But when I say the bass shows me, one of the reasons I say that is I remember when I think I was about 7 years old, and I got my first record player. And the first record I stole from my mother's collection was Graham Central Station. Right. I knew nothing about bass or any of that, but that was the record. Out of all the records she played, that was the record that just had a big effect on me. Um, and then later on, I remember going to, I'd be in elementary school. I was part of that latchkey kid generation. So I'd come home from school, my mom would be at work, and instead of coming home and doing my homework first, which is what I was supposed to do, I would go to her record player and I would play uh, Roger Troutman, The Many Facets of Roger, and Luther Vandross's Never Too Much album. Again, not really knowing anything about, bass specifically, but then just as I got older and got into Michelle and cello, and then when I picked up bass and started, and then I learned about Marcus Miller, and then I just realized Marcus Miller had such an impact on my life years before I ever even thought about picking up the bass. So when I say the bass shows me, it was like that was the instrument that I had always gravitated toward my whole life, before even considering taking up being a musician seriously.
Well, you mentioned MI, that's the Musicians Institute. When were
Musician
you
Institute.
there?
So I was there. I picked up the bass in '96. I was doing Malcolm and Eddie. Spring of '97, we were on hiatus. I had a 3 month hiatus. So the only course I could really take at MI was this 10-week intensive, and I was in way over my head because at that time I had only been playing bass for not even a year, and you know I was in way over my head. Todd Johnson was one of my teachers. It was a bass improv, and he said to me, he said, "Listen, Malcolm, you are in way over your head, but I still want you to stay. I want you to stay in the class and just pick up what you can." So after that 10-week intensive was over, I had all of this information that, of course, took me like 2 or 3 years to really be able to process. But what came out of those 10 weeks was I ended up putting a band together because I knew it was going to, I knew if I put a band together, it would make me develop much quicker, and it would make me practice in a way that I would not have if I didn't have, shows to do. And, when you're the bass player, you play with great cats. And as you know, any other instrument, you can mess up, and get away with it. But if you're the bass player, your mistakes stand out. So, putting the band together and booking gigs, pretty immediately really made me focus. Like I said, it made me focus in a way that I would not have had to if had I not been booking gigs.
On the other end of the spectrum, by the way, I think the lead trumpet player shares that that dangerous, precarious position.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
trumpet player messes up, and or the bass player, they're going to
Yeah.
notice. So Bob Magnuson must have been there when you were there, right? At Musicians Institute.
No, he was not there. Not when I was that was there
97.
97.
I thought he had retired just recently. Maybe that was just retired from playing.
Okay,
Because I
yeah,
remember back in the old days with Steve Bailey and Bill Titus, and, who was
yeah.
there? Ogert and Jeff Berlin. That's going to be way back.
He was definitely gone by
And
the time I was there.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you working on now? Is it technique? Is it composing? Is it producing? And what's your real passion when it comes to
Well, so
music?
I'm gigging a lot. We were shooting at a resident here in Atlanta. So I've been here in Atlanta for the last 5 years, and I've been gigging more here than I have gigged in quite a long time. So I play in like three different bands here. One of the bands I play in is we do it's a Tribe Called Quest tribute band. called "We Got the Jazz of a Tribe Called Quest," where we play the tribe hits, but we also play the original songs they sampled from. So it's a live hip hop, jazz, soul, funk show, uh, which is pretty. It's pretty dope. It's pretty entertaining for people who are fans of hip hop and jazz. It just kind of brings it all together. So I play in that band. The lead trumpet player in that band, Dashiell Smith, plays trumpet for Roy Ayers, and I play bass for Dashiell here in Atlanta. And then I do, of course, the Miles Long gig. So the live playing has got me pretty busy. Uh, I have this whole new approach to playing because about 2 months ago I decided to detune my bass. So
Okay.
so now I'm playing low A to F. So that's a whole, as you can imagine,
Oh,
it's
five string.
yeah, I'm playing 5 string. So I've always played 5 string. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
now,
see one over your shoulder there.
yeah, that's my anaconda. That's my
So
baby.
B wasn't low enough, huh?
You know, actually what happened, I was doing a performance over at Berkeley, and I was performing one of my songs, and I just had this I was like, and my song was in D minor. So I was like, it'd be kind of cool to be able to play chords over an open D. And then that just kind of took off, and I ended up just kind of experimenting. For a minute, I was only detuning the low B string. And then that just got too confusing. So I was like, let me just detune everything. But it's really changed my approach. And mind you, it's only been 2 months, but what happened for me is suddenly all of the just the patterns and things I learned by rote didn't apply. I had to really let go of everything I was used to doing, and having to use my ear more, which is something. Yeah, but yeah, go figure,
What
right?
concept?
The novel idea. But I really had to use my ear and really had to use my, feel more because I couldn't depend on um, my normal memorization of music, which brought me to a really big epiphany um, that I noticed. So as an actor, my short-term memory is vital, right? Because I have to memorize lines, then I shoot the show, then throw that dialogue out to make room for the new script, the new dialogue. So what I realized all this time with music, I had been relying on that short-term memory, as opposed to with music, you need it needs to be embedded in your hard drive. So what I realize is for as long as I've been playing, I've been treating music like dialogue as opposed to a language. That makes sense.
Interesting.
So
Yes.
so no wonder when I would go back to, you know, do my if I haven't done my set in like, 2 or 3 months, I'd have to go back and relearn my stuff all over again. Like literally like that transcribe some of my stuff like I'm transcribing somebody else's music. And it was because nothing was sticking was because I was relying on that short-term memory as opposed to embedding the language in my brain. So
Have
that's
you
been a
ever
whole
done
new epiphany.
any theater production as
Yeah.
an actor?
Oh yeah. I
Okay.
started out in theater.
Well, so you don't have that luxury of being able to forget what you said in the last scene because you got to remember for the whole 3 hours. So
Yeah. Yeah. But once that, once that 3 or 4 month run is over, all those lines that I've been doing 8 shows a week, it just all goes out. It all goes out the window because my whole life has been it's been a series of learning dialogue, doing it, and like I said, throwing it out to make room for the next set of dialogue.
is there such thing as a typical number of scenes you would shoot in a show like The Resident or any show?
It varies. It totally varies, and because it depends on the episode, how many scenes you're actually in. So it can vary, but we're always working on whatever the episode we're working on presently, we're also working on the next episode as well.
Okay.
Because it's not just dialogue, it's character and backstory and all of that stuff.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said about detuning the bass and it got confusing. So what I understood you to mean was that you tuned down all the strings,
Yeah.
major second. So why was that so different? You're doing the same thing. Your fingers, the shapes, all that stuff should be the same because all the strings were tuned down exactly the same amount.
Yeah, but they're just in a different place. So if I'm going to reach for a B flat, which is on, that first fret, it's like, oh well, no, that's A flat now. And again,
Okay,
my playing has been all um memorization as opposed to internalizing.
got it.
So now I'm forced to I'm reapproaching the way I play. So like now I'm forced to internalize because it's not just about what's on the fretboard. It's like, well, what am I trying to say as opposed to what am I trying to remember? So
Okay.
in these last 2 months, I'm having like this whole new uh love affair with music again.
Yeah, I was going to say that that would be a good exercise to go to. That'd be
Yeah,
good for you.
yeah, yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit more about playing bass and learning bass. Because For Bass Players Only is a bass instruction site, really. And I've got people from pretty much all 50 states and I don't know, 50, 60 countries
Wow,
worldwide coming every day to For Bass Players Only to learn bass.
wow, that's great.
And most of them are men in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I got one the other day. He was 83 years old and once we're getting more women, I'm attracting women now. But I'm just trying to give you a context there. So, if for somebody like that, they may be retired. They're not trying to make a career out of music. They just want to play some classic rock riffs with their
Yeah.
buddies, or some blues shuffles, or maybe some walking bass, maybe a little funk R&B. So, now that you have the context, what advice could you impart to somebody like that who wants to learn bass? What do you think they should be?
Mm, mm. So I think about what Victor Wooten says about learning music. How we tend to approach it backwards. Whereas when we're learning music, we're learning, notes and scales. Um, but as Victor says, no one tells a kid, here are 26 letters. Now go make some words. We learn we learn language from our parents and people who we're around. So what I tell people who are taking an approach to music and getting caught up in the theory of it all, I'm a really big proponent of. And now that we have the technology, I'm a really big proponent of find music that you like. And I use transcribe software, right? So I may find a piece of music that I like. Oh, I like that phrase there. Um, I will take that phrase, put it in my computer, loop it, and just learn that phrase over and over, and just sing it over and over and over and over, and just sing it so I can internalize it, right? And then go to my bass and then find it. If I'm singing to myself, because I say if you can sing it, you can play it. So I sing it to myself, and then I get on my bass, and then I find that thing that I've been singing for the last couple of days. And if you've been doing scales and you know your notes, that will make it easier. But I'm really for the approach of internalizing the music as opposed to just seeing the notes and scales and um, trying to make sense of all this stuff. It's almost like find a couple of things you want to say and then use the theory to help support learning that.
I like that. As opposed to just sight reading a piece of music you've never seen before, you've never heard before. Find something you like, internalize it, and over again, and then
Yeah.
play it with that background
Yeah,
music.
yeah. Because the kid, a child learns to speak from their parents. They form sentences because they've heard their parents say something over and over again.
Yes, usually their first word is no.
No, yeah, because they've heard the parents say that over and over again. No.
That's right. Steve Martin had a bit on that. He says if you have a 3-year-old kid and you want to play a dirty trick on him, whenever you're around him, talk long. So it'll be like his first day in school. Raise his hand, yes. And the kid will say, "Hey, I mambo dog face to the banana patch."
Sounds like Steve Martin too. That's great.
But I digress. What about the future? Well, tell me about Miles Long first of all.
Yeah. So I started Miles Long in '98. Um, And one of the things that I've really enjoyed about being here in Atlanta and playing, uh, I have an opportunity to play for other bands and other people, which, ironically enough, when I first picked up the bass, I wanted to be able to play bass for other people. One of the reasons I started a band because I knew no one would have me as their bass player if they didn't see me play bass. So that's when I started the band. And initially, when I
Eh,
started the band, I wasn't doing poetry with the band, even though I was doing poetry. I'd been doing poetry, but I wanted to keep the poetry and the music separate. And when I started doing shows, it was just an all instrumental situation. I had a singer who would come in like sing one of her songs. My sax player sang. Um, but I was doing the shows, and people who were coming to see me weren't necessarily coming to see me stand in the back next to the drummer. Um, and doing shows was costing me $300, out of pocket expenses. Once I paid the band, and paid for print and advertising and all that, it was costing me money. So at some point, I was like, well, if I had a CD to sell after the show, then at least I wouldn't feel like I'm losing money. But since I had no original music, I was like, okay, well, I need to actually write some original music and do my poetry over that. Then I'd have something to sell. So that's really how Miles Long came about. But initially it was like, okay, well, let me put myself in a position so people could see me as a bass player, and then I can, hopefully somebody will hire me to play bass for them. Which I've been able to do like through the years, but here in Atlanta consistently, it's been pretty cool to play for other people and not have the weight of a whole show all on my shoulders, you know?
is there a pretty happening scene down there in Atlanta?
Oh man, yeah. Yeah. The music community here is on fire.
I did play a show. I did the national tour of Into the Woods with Cleo Lane back
Okay.
in in '89, and Atlanta was one of our stops. We played at the Fox Theater there for
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful venue.
Yeah.
And yeah, I years ago I stumbled across a guy on Facebook named John Liebman who lives in Atlanta, and I think he's like a blues harmonica or something. I forgot the name of his band, but did you ever come across my
That's great. No. But now that
my
you
name?
mention it, I'm sure I will.
Yeah, I think we were Facebook friends, or I don't know. I almost forgot about that. What about the future? What else did you move to Atlanta pretty much because of the resident?
I moved here because of the resident, yeah. And since COVID, all auditions are self-tape, you know. So there hasn't really been a reason to rush back to LA because I'll go back to LA and just do self-tape auditions, which I could do here in Atlanta. And because there's so much production shooting all over the place, my next show could, very possibly be here in Atlanta. So my daughter's 6. We have her situated. We like our life and our community and village here. So we're gonna hang out here, just kind of see where the next show takes us whenever this damn strike ends.
I heard there was maybe a little encouraging news this morning, but that's what they were saying on the news. It ain't done till it's done.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I have music and my wife and daughter to keep me occupied.
There you go. Hey, I was hesitating whether or not I should ask you this. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you want to say anything about Bill Cosby?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if any of it really applies.
Okay.
To what we're talking about.
No, it doesn't, but
Yeah.
neither does Malcolm and Eddie and the Resident and all that stuff.
Sure.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, what is the name of the latest record that the one that just got nominated for a
Sure.
Grammy?
It's called Hiding in Plain View.
Hiding in Plain View. Okay, I want to make sure people know about that.
Okay, and also, so it's on and obviously Spotify and Apple Music, but the name of the band is Miles Long. So the official artist name is Malcolm-Jamal Warner's Miles Long. So if you go up, if you go on Apple Spotify and just type in Malcolm-Jamal Warner, all these other stuff will come up. The features that I've done and collaborations I've done. But in terms of my music and my albums, you would search Malcolm-Jamal Warner's Miles Long.
Okay, I can probably guess the answer to this, but where did the miles come from in that name?
So it's interesting. So it's yeah, it's not the obvious that everyone thinks. Miles Long was actually the name of my rap group uh, back in 88, 89, and the idea was we were so heavy and so conscious. The distance between us and other rappers was miles long. So that was the concept of that. And then years later, when I committed to uh being a musician and studying the language of music, I still liked the name, so I kept the name. And Miles Long, really represents, I've come a long way, but I still have a long way to go. And because the band is a jazz funk spoken word band, of course, there's the double entendre of the Miles.
Got it. I just assumed that Miles Davis had something to do with it, and probably a lot of other people did as well.
Sure, sure.
Now we know the truth.
But but it worked. So ironically enough, I started about 2.5 years ago. I started studying trumpet,
Huh.
ironically enough. And it's funny because I remember when Flea, I remember, 12, 15 years ago, hearing that Flea was studying trumpet. And I always thought that was kind of cool, whatever. And here I am 12 years later studying trumpet myself.
How did you become interested in learning to play the trumpet?
So I played trumpet in fourth grade for about a week. I didn't last. I didn't even last a full week. Um,
Well, at least you gave it a chance.
I gave it a chance, fourth grade. But a couple of years ago, my daughter was watching Daniel Tiger, uh,
Okay.
and I guess the Daniel Tiger's father plays trumpet. So one day, my daughter was like, "Papa, I want a trumpet." So, I went to Amazon, bought this trumpet. It was this toy trumpet, but it was this cheap plastic trumpet. It was so cheap, it came with four valves. Um, and I played it. I was like, I'm not getting my daughter this. So I went to Amazon. I spent $100 on a real trumpet, and I was kind of excited myself to play it since I hadn't played in so long. And it came, and I would ask her if I could play her trumpet. And she's like, 3 years old, and she was like, "No." Like, "Let me play your trumpet." She was like, "I'll think about it." And then the time she would let me play, she let me play for like 2 or 3 minutes and wanted back. And then after about a week and a half of that, she said to me, "Papa, I think you should get your own trumpet."
Like duets.
So I said, "Okay, okay." So actually, I got a trumpet and just started playing and fell in love with it, because again, as I was talking about earlier, in terms of my approach to bass playing, so much of it was memorization. um, and
Right.
patterns. But what I missed out on when I was, playing scales was the oral component of it. I was memorizing scales to know patterns. So, when I know a chord's coming up, I know theoretically what I can play over a particular chord. And as you know, on bass, wherever that you put your finger on a certain fret, that note is going to ring out. So all this time, on bass, I could play a fourth anywhere on the neck because I know it. I know what a fourth is theoretically, and I know where a fourth is logistically. Whereas on trumpet, you have to hear that fourth before you play it. So when I started playing trumpet, I was having this new discovery and this new relationship with intervals that I wasn't that I missed out on bass because when I started playing bass, I started playing gigs immediately, and it was all about okay, I got to play so I can get ready for a show. Whereas with trumpet, I wasn't doing shows with trumpet, so I could just take my time and and sit in these intervallic relationships, which has of course helped me immensely as a bass player.
It's important. I have a new digital course coming out, uh, bass guitar for the rocker in you. And I've got a whole lesson just on intervals and the very thing that you're talking about. I wanted to call it bass guitar for old rockers. And I put together a team and I let everybody vote on it. And I was surprised that it didn't get, wasn't the winner. Would you
Yeah,
would you like the other title better?
yeah. I like what you have.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That kind of
Yeah,
affirms.
for the rocker in you. That's yeah. But I tell people all the time. I said, look, if I could pick up trumpet at 50, you can pick up bass at any age.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Chuck Rainey and I think Will Lee and Mark Egan and you mentioned Flea. I think those guys all started on trumpet. I think one of them might have played French horn, but I don't know. A lot
Mm,
of trumpet playing bass players or former trumpet playing.
mm.
Hey, well, Malcolm, this is great. Let's not wait another 9 years before we do this again. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
you being
Yeah, thank you,
here.
John. And yo, man, I just want to say to you, uh, I guess congratulations on one end, but just really cool because of course I remember you from your books, before the internet was a thing, and just to be able to pivot and be able to use technology, and use all of this. I guess all this technology to keep doing what you're doing and to keep teaching and keep being a music educator. I think that's pretty cool, man. So I just want to say congratulations on being able to, find a way to make that pivot with the time.
Well, thank you very much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I had gotten an email from somebody in 2008, and he
Mm.
says, John Lee, I love your books. I love your stuff. I love what you do. I looked all over the internet, and I can't believe there's no John Lee.com. And I went, it's 2008. I guess it's not too soon to do it. So that's how that started. But thank you so much for your kind words. That really means a lot. I
Yeah, man.
appreciate it.
Yeah. I
And
remember.
thank
I
you.
remember when we first met. You were like, "I'm a job leaving." I was like, "I know you."
No, no, you came up to me and you said, "Hi, my name is Malcolm, and I have your books, and I
Oh, that's
like what you." I said, "Nice to meet you, Malcolm. What's your last name?" And you said, "I'm Malcolm-Jamal Warner." You were wearing a baseball cap, and it was dark in the room, and I couldn't see. And I said, "Oh, hey, you're a baseball an interview," and that's how that all came about.
oh, that's great. Uh,
Yeah,
so I found out on you. See, look at that.
yeah, that well feels good for a change.
Yeah,
Well, thanks again so much. Good luck with everything, and maybe you have a new record in the works. And it sounds like you're pretty confident you'll get another show in the works. And please let
yeah.
me know because my wife wanted to come down and say hello, but she wasn't able to do that. I think she was disappointed. But hello from Mindy to you.
Okay, well, tell men just said, "Hey,
I sure will. Thanks again, and let's do it again.
you got it." Thank you, John.
You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. A lot of people think they're too old or it's too late for them to learn how to play an instrument. So I created ForBassPlayersOnly.com for adults, mostly over 50. Some of them even identify as old rockers who want to learn to play bass because I believe you're never too old and it's never too late to experience the joy and the pleasure of making music. For BassPlayersOnly.com, this is the place to learn bass. Thanks again to my guest, Malcolm-Jamal Warner. I will see you all right back here, same time, same place next week. In the meantime, let's play bass.